Taiwan, I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan and the U.S. are partnering up on international development. Taiwan's top representative to the U.S. signed the agreement in Washington. The deal will encourage loans and investments in areas like healthcare technology, agriculture, climate, and energy. Taiwan and China are still at odds over the death of two Chinese fishers in Taiwan waters. Representatives from China's Red Cross met with Taiwan's Coast Guard on Friday but did not comment on their discussions. The Coast Guard denies China's claims that it rammed the fishing boat, saying it acted according to protocol when the vessel trespassed into Taiwan's territorial waters. Both sides are conducting investigations into the incident amid already tense relations between Taipei and Beijing. The number of people in Taiwan who identify as Chinese has hit a record low. In a new survey by the National Zhengzhi University, just 2.4% of respondents called themselves Chinese. That compares to the over 60% who feel they are Taiwanese. About 30% consider themselves to be both. Taiwanese identity has been rising over the decades, while Chinese identity has been dwindling. The survey also asked respondents how they feel about Taiwan's relationship with China. To find out more about identity, I spoke with Lev Nachman, an assistant professor at the university that did the survey. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of this survey and this year's results?
Yeah, so this is a part of an ongoing survey that NCCU's Election Studies Center has been doing for decades now. And really what the results find is nothing new. It's sort of a continuation on the same trends that they've been tracking since the 90s, which is, one, Taiwanese identity continues to go up. Chinese identity continues to stay incredibly low. People still overwhelmingly want the status quo. People do not want either immediate independence or immediate unification. And the people that do want any sort of unification are incredibly low.
Now, as you mentioned, most survey respondents said that they wanted to maintain the status quo with China. When they say maintain the status quo, what does that mean?
Given the fact that we offer a choice between independence, status quo, and unification, we see that people overwhelmingly do not pick independence and do not pick unification, but they want this sort of thing that's in the middle. Now, of course, how exactly people define what they mean by status quo will likely vary quite widely. But the important takeaway is that people do not want any sort of major change to Taiwan.
These days, Taiwan faces many challenges from China, like ally poaching and trade restrictions. When people say they want the status quo, are they expecting more of that?
I think Taiwanese voters have shown time and time again that they are pragmatic, rational voters when it comes to Taiwan's future. And they know that even though this weird, awkward gray zone that Taiwan exists in is not ideal, it allows Taiwan to exist as a peaceful democracy. Even though Taiwan's version of a peaceful democracy comes with all of these caveats like threats from the PRC, its sort of awkward position in international order, all these economic troubles, diplomatic troubles. But at the end of the day, voters know that at the very least, given this situation, we can continue to exist peacefully. And I think ultimately that's what voters want.
Will this survey affect, say, things like policymaking?
I think it's definitely something that people around the world, whether you're in, Taipei, DC, or any other capital, look to this survey very regularly as sort of the data to show what it is that Taiwanese people want. We often talk about how it's very important that we center Taiwanese perspectives and that we center what it is that Taiwanese voters themselves want for their own country. And it's data like this that policymakers around the world can say, look, we should not be trying to rock the boat for Taiwan in any particular direction because we know that voters in Taiwan do not want any sort of major change.
That was my conversation with Lev Nachman of Taiwan's National Zhengzhi University. People are gathering in Taipei in support of Ukraine's fight to fend off Russia. February 24th marks the 2-year anniversary of the start of the war. Rick Lout reports from the Solidarity Rally in Taiwan's capital.
It's now 2 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, a war that has left tens of thousands dead and displaced millions. Here in Taiwan's capital, Taipei, people are gathering to show support for Ukraine's fight for freedom. Many here in Taiwan have found a common cause with Ukraine. Taiwan, too, has a belligerent authoritarian neighbor, China. which also threatens its very existence. Over the last 2 years, Taiwan's government and people have given millions of dollars in support of a fight which resonates with them. As the war enters its third year, international support for Ukraine appears to be waning, and Ukraine appears to be on the back foot in its fight against Russia. The message from people here: don't give up on Ukraine's fight for freedom. Ryan Wu and Rick Liao in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The United States has announced more than 500 new sanctions against Russia after the death of opposition figure Alexei Navalny. Key targets include Russian payment systems, military technology, and officials involved in Navalny's imprisonment. Navalny died suddenly while serving a 19-year sentence in an Arctic prison. Western leaders have blamed Russian President Vladimir Putin for his death. Russia is also facing sanctions from the European Union, UK, and Canada. The new round of sanctions marks the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. is operating 4 aircraft carriers in the Indo-Pacific, but there are concerns that with China's rapid military modernization, that might not be enough for Washington to project power in the region. For more on this, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Colin Ko, a security analyst from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies based in Singapore.
How do you think China feels when the United States continues to sail in the Taiwan Strait as a force of, they say freedom of navigation, but to maintain their presence? How do you think China feels on that end?
I think we have seen in the more recent times, China having put out, rhetoric and even, trying to attempt lawfare type of actions in, I think that is all these, what we call gray zone activities were aimed at trying to undermine what we call freedom of navigation and overflight in the Taiwan Strait. China's main beef is that the military vessels passing through the Taiwan Strait embolden what they call separatists in Taiwan, right? And I mean, the thing is that China wants to see it as a security issue. The threat and the risk here is if China is to be able to dictate which type of vessel can pass through the Taiwan Strait and under what circumstance, then it will actually be quite detrimental for international maritime order.
How do you think the United States is seeing or feeling about a more aggressive or more assertive China sailing and operating kind of deeper into the Pacific, kind of changing the security paradigm?
Of course, I think you certainly recall that because it just happened in Taiwan itself. You remember in August 2022 when Nancy Pelosi visited Taipei, and obviously the U.S. Navy responded by sending, if I'm not wrong, the Ronald Reagan and then the so-called Lightning Carrier Tripoli to the region in response to the crisis. And of course, Pelosi's plane skirted the South China Sea for reported concern that there is a sizable Chinese military presence in the area, and they don't want to risk any untoward incident. It was a far cry from what we saw in the 1990s Taiwan Strait crisis when the US Navy parked the carriers right within Taiwan Strait itself. If anything, the signals being sent to various parties appear to be a mixed one. On the one hand, the show of force by the US military goes to show that there is commitment towards Taiwan. However, if you compare that incident with what happened in the 1990s, some will argue that the US appear concerned about the growing Chinese military capabilities. And obviously, those in Taiwan could argue that the US is not as committed in protecting Taiwan because it is not too bold enough to put the carriers in Taiwan Strait itself or even somewhere off the Taiwan eastern seaboard.
That was Colin Ko, a security analyst from Singapore, speaking to our reporter Jaime Okan. Over 100 cars crashed into each other on an icy highway in eastern China. Video from Suzhou City shows cars piled on top of each other and scattered debris along the expressway. Local police say at least 9 people were injured. China is currently experiencing extreme weather with record heat reported in the south and record cold up north. Widespread cold and freezing rain has led to disruptions as millions of people traveled during the Lunar New Year holiday. Firefighters have recovered 9 bodies from an apartment complex fire in eastern Spain that injured 15 others. The residential building went up in flames in the eastern city of Valencia, quickly engulfing the building that was home to 450 people. Officials have not answered questions on what caused the fire, but local engineers say the building's materials, combined with strong winds and high temperatures, may have led to the fire's rapid spread. No home and no money. Over 100 Taipei households are still waiting for compensation after their homes sank into the ground last year. Construction in Taipei's Dazi district caused nearby apartment units to collapse last September. The construction company working on the project was found responsible and ordered to pay compensation to affected families. But Jitai Properties has yet to file the necessary paperwork to begin the payout process. Jitai says affected households can start applying for compensation next month. The Coast Guard is working to protect a traditional flying fish festival on Taiwan's outlying Orchid Island. The Indigenous Dao people there are celebrating their February flying fish season. They believe these fish are a sacred gift from heaven and prepare for the annual tradition with many rules and rituals. In previous years, tourists have filmed the events, damaged traditional boats, and interrupted fishing activities. The Coast Guard has dispatched a boat and drones to prevent tourists from interfering. The 20th edition of Taiwan's International Orchid Show has officially opened in the southern city of Tainan. President-elect and former Tainan Mayor Lai Ching-te attended the opening ceremony. Lai said he hopes the orchid can become a symbol for Taiwan and pledged to support the industry. Taiwan's weather and geographical location are ideal for the orchid industry, which was valued at over $220 million last year. 1 out of every 3 orchid plants around the world are from Taiwan. Turtle and chewy are not 2 words that usually go together, but in Taiwan's outlying Penghu Islands, these turtle-shaped treats are a traditional Lantern Festival delicacy. Sally Ensign has this story.
No hard outer shells here. Soft and chewy, these are Penghu's traditional turtle cakes. Glutinous rice flour, sugar, banana and oil are kneaded into a dough and formed into a turtle shape before being hand-painted with lucky characters. A staple at Lantern Festival, turtle cakes represent peace, health and good fortune and provide sustenance for those who come to pray. Here in the Penghu Islands in the Taiwan Strait, temples put out turtles of different shapes and sizes as part of celebrations. One local vendor's delicacies have even caught the attention of pastry chefs on Taiwan's main island.
澎湖那个开台天后宫，去年的话送500道大甲镇安宫，引起他的注目。
But the old Penghu way of making the turtle cake is different from the Taichung way, which uses modern, more commercial methods and ingredients.
糯米粉做的，跟一般西点面包的面粉是不一样的，他们搞不清楚啊哈，搞不清楚这个东西的要怎么特性。
Old school pastry vendors here hope their students from Taiwan's mainland will learn to make turtly exquisite sweet treats for Lantern Festival, not to turn a profit over the meaningful holiday, but to carry Penghu's culinary legacy long into the future. Ryan Wu and Sally Ensign for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, join us in welcoming to the world a baby Asian elephant born last week at the Zoo of Copenhagen. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.